So, hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Nikki Windsor. I am the Jungle Goddess. I'm a culinary wellness coach, and every week I'm speaking to you, bringing you culinary wellness wisdom. And today's going to be a great one because I'm talking to you about chocolate. So, I'm talking about chocolate, cacao, cocoa, the origins of chocolate. As you know, I lived for many years in Costa Rica, and the story of cacao in Costa Rica starts with the Bribri. So the Bribri are one of several indigenous tribes native to Costa Rica and the surrounding area. And the Bribri inhabit primarily the Talamanca region, a mountain chain that runs down the Caribbean side of Costa Rica and into Panama. Now, I lived in Talamanca for 11 years. So, for the Bribri, they revere cacao as being sacred. They have cultivated cacao trees and their precious fruit for generations, using the fruit, seeds, and chocolate for rituals, food, and medicinal purposes. Cacao is ceremonial and out there, and I've participated in a number of cacao ceremonies, connecting with the energy of the cacao, one's ancient self, and with the gathering of the ceremony. So the story of cacao with the Bribri starts with it's what their history is. It goes way back in their ancient history. So cacao is known as tsuru in the Bribri language, and it holds great spiritual significance. So tsuru was a young woman who showed unique kindness to Sibu, who was the creator of the universe and mankind, according to the Bribri. One cold night, this deity, in the shape of an elderly man, was passing through her community, and only Tsuru offered him food and a place to sleep. To show his gratitude, Sibu transformed Tsuru into a cacao tree that would provide for all future generations. For this reason, the Bribri people consider the cacao tree to be female, and never uses its branches for firewood or construction. Only women are permitted to prepare and serve the sacred cacao drink, traditionally used for ritual ceremonies. Dried cacao nibs ground into a paste formed into chocolate balls and dissolved in water. So what is chocolate? Well, chocolate is made from cacao beans. Well, cacao beans are actually seeds, and they're from the Theobroma cacao tree. So this tree grows like pod-like fruits. They're about this big. There's many different varieties, but you can get smaller pods, bigger pods. And they'll typically contain 20 to 60 seeds that are surrounded by a sticky, sweet, tart pulp, which is delicious. It really is. And they call this the cacao nectar. And it's really sweet and juicy, but the beans at this point, they're really bitter and astringent. You can eat them, and I have. They're quite purpley in colour. And the Caribbean coast where I lived, a lot of the land was put over to cacao plantations. And I actually lived, in a number of places that was just surrounded by old cacao plantations. So I'm going to show you throughout this presentation a few photos of that are related to cacao. I'm showing you a photo of my house, and this house is surrounded by cacao plants and cacao trees. And the one nearest my house, just kept becoming a problem, so I frequently had to try and chop it down. But I could just go out and pick a cacao pod, crack it open, and just suck the nectar, and if I wanted to, eat the beans. It was great. So how is chocolate made? Well, first of all, those pods are harvested. The next process is fermentation. So that is necessary to remove the pulp, and it's a key stage in the development of the chocolate flavor and the aroma. So microbes basically eat away at the cacao nectar, and they ferment the beans. The next stage is drying, and traditionally it's dried under the sun for several days. I can remember my friends, I had a lot of chocolatier friends cursing when the rain came in because they had cacao beans that they needed to dry, and they were just praying for sun. So, at this point, that is where you have your raw cacao beans. Now, cacao's never really truly raw unless you eat it out of the pod, because during the fermentation process, you can get very high temperatures within the beans, within the fermentation. It's a side effect of fermentation. It's the generation of heat. So people who are making raw cacao products, and they're making a lot of effort to keep those temperatures down, but it can never really be guaranteed. So that's where you have your, if you've seen raw cacao nibs, raw cacao beans, raw chocolate, it's the beans at this stage that they're using. So for traditional chocolate, the next stage is roasting, and traditionally beans were roasted over a fire. And some of the photos that I'm showing you are from when I took my mum on a cacao tour with the local brewery, and then so you can see some of the traditional ways in which chocolate was made. So once the beans have been roasted, so this is an example of roasted beans. So these beans, I actually bought them raw, but I roasted them. So cacao beans have a thin papery shell. You can see it coming off here. And you don't want that in the chocolate. So as you can hear it crumbles off. It crumbles off a lot easier once it's been roasted. And then you get, I'm already getting the smell of these, are great. So they actually crumble down, and this is what's called your cacao nibs. But when you're making, so this is where the beans are cracked. So the cracking of the beans is what helps that shell come off. But then you've got shell in your cracked beans, so then it's winnowing. So that will be traditionally there will be tossing the cracked beans and using a fan. That would have been a piece of board or something, because it's papery, they would fly up and they could be blown out, and that would be the way in which they'd blow out these shells. And then that gives you a cracked bean. So these ones here, this is cracked raw cacao. And these I roasted earlier, so you can see the difference. So it's got a much richer colour, and and it's got a richer, they both smell wonderful, but it's got a richer smell to it. So that's raw cacao beans and roasted. So the next stage is grinding. So you'll grind the nibs and they form a paste, which is called cacao liquor. And it's at that point that it's ready to use. So basically I'm going to show you this. I've got a little grinder here. Now you can grind it down into a powder, but the more that you grind it, it warms up the cacao butter and creates a paste. So as you can see here, that's a nice powder. But if I keep going, it's the generation of heat that melts that fat. So it's starting to clump together. You can hear the difference. So now if I bring this up, it's starting to form a paste. It's not as crumbly anymore. And you can see that there. So then basically this, you'll just keep grinding it. So then the more it heats up, the more that cacao butter melts. And then and that's how you get this liquid chocolate. And so, yeah, this is what we call liquor. Now we have machines to do it, but the way it was done is in grain mills and just keep grinding it. So at this stage, it has the cocoa solids and the cocoa butter, which is the natural fat of the bean. So cacao is high in fat. So to make cocoa powder, or cocoa powder as we call it in the UK, you press the liquor to separate and remove the fat. So at this stage, it's where often other ingredients are added in to make the product. So like sugar, like vanilla and milk, if you're making milk chocolate. Now, good chocolatiers will add extra cocoa butter to make their chocolate smoother and creamier in texture. But most mass-produced chocolate makers, they use cheap vegetable fats instead. So the next stage is what's called tempering. So tempering is a process that encourages the chocolate to form the right kind of crystals that it gives, that gives the chocolate the form, that smooth form that you're used to. Without that process, it's very soft and crumbly. And then when you put it into molds, you make bars, and then you wrap your chocolate. Now, I did many different things in Costa Rica. Basically, you did whatever you could to survive out there. And one of my jobs was chocolate bar wrapping. So I used to wrap chocolate for 4 hours a week, and I could wrap 200 chocolate bars in those 4 hours. So I've got chocolate all over me now. So at this stage, it's still quite bitter. Because there's very little sugar content in cacao beans. So the percentage of cocoa solids is stated on the packaging of chocolate bars. In the UK, to be called chocolate must contain at least 20% cocoa solids. That's just 20%. So what is the other 80%? And that's what you got to think about of when does the nutritional chocolate bar become something that basically is just a weight gaining product. So I've got a number of different chocolate bars here. Just to give you an idea of how different these can be. So Galaxy is one of my favourite. Now, I'm not actually a big chocolate eater. I don't eat an awful lot. It actually doesn't sit well with me. I can only eat very small amounts. So I was the perfect chocolate bar wrapper because I didn't eat all the chocolate. So Galaxy chocolate, number of different ingredients. This has got 25% minimum cacao. So the top ingredient, so the biggest ingredient in this is sugar. It's then skimmed milk powder. It's then cacao butter. It's then cacao mass. So cacao is ingredients 3 and 4 on this, and it's only 25% of the bar. Also, milk chocolate contains vegetable fats in addition to cocoa butter. So they've used vegetable fat to get a creamier, smoother texture instead of cacao butter. Okay, let's have a look at Cadbury's. Now this is Cadbury's dark milk. So this is this actually tends to have dark chocolate has more percentage of cocoa solids. So this one has 40%, and this one doesn't have vegetable oil added. So this is just using cocoa butter. But sugar is still the top ingredient. It still has milk fat in it. So instead of vegetable fat, they've got milk fat in there. But this is a dark milk. So milk chocolate has milk added. Dark milk has less milk added. So that's 40%. It's better. Now I've got one of these no sugar added ones here. This one has 55% minimum cocoa. So that we're over 50% cacao in this, which is a lot better. But what this is using is basically oligosaccharides, which are a FODMAP. If you're sensitive to FODMAPs, and this is basically using FODMAPs to sweeten it instead of sugar. And at least on this one, cocoa is the first ingredient, so it's the primary ingredient, but it's got sweeteners in it to sweeten it instead of sugar. So I've got a Bournville dark chocolate here. So this is just a dark chocolate. So sugar, again, is the top ingredient. This only has 36% cocoa. So even as a dark chocolate, it's mainly sugar. It also has palm oil. So again, it's got a vegetable oil instead of using the natural fat of the cocoa bean. And then we get into more much higher quality chocolate. These cost a lot more money, but the nutritional benefit of this far exceeds any of these. And you know, they've got great health benefits. I mean, you want a good high quality chocolate for the health benefits. They deteriorate the more that the chocolate is processed, the more milk that's added, the other ingredients are added, the more fats, unnatural fats to chocolate are added. So if it's been minimally processed, it's high in antioxidants and disease-fighting compounds. The cocoa bean contains several minerals that are necessary for vascular function. It's got dietary magnesium, copper, potassium, and calcium. And it's got minerals, antioxidants, vasoactive and even psychoactive compounds. So they're compounds that can help the vascular system, that can help the brain. So on this one we have unroasted cacao. This is, so as you can see there, they're not calling it raw. It's unroasted cacao. It has coconut sugar in it, so it's a more natural sugar. It's got cocoa butter, and this is 90% cacao. So, I mean, it's a small bar. That small bar has cost more money than that. But the nutritional benefits of it far exceed this. It doesn't have the sugar. I mean, this, as I said, is 25% cacao. This is 90. So that's a little bit of information about chocolate. I hope you found it interesting. I'm all about finding ways in which you can eat better, get more nutritional value out of what you are eating, and using health, diet and lifestyle changes to improve your health. Specifically, I specialize in digestive issues. So if you've got any questions about cacao or about anything culinary wellness, then please just drop me a note. All right, enjoy your day.